first, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello everyone, this is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thank you for joining us here today. We do appreciate it. We do live stream here every weekday starting about 1 p.m. Pacific from the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom, and we are on a number of different platforms. So thanks for finding us on one of those. You can, of course, watch all of our segments afterward and share them as well from there. I do recommend the Fox 12 Oregon app for whatever platform you are on. Right now, though, we are going to be talking to, playing an interview of where I spoke to U.S. Representative Andrea Salinas from Oregon's 6th District about budget requests for 2025. They're already in. So everybody submitted their budgets. Then there are debates about how those get funded, what gets funded, and that's what we talk about here during this segment. We cover how that process works and some of the big requests that she's put in, including expansion of the Salem Airport. Then at the end of it, we talk about another bill that would expand the use of geothermal energy in the state of Oregon. It's already being used in certain places. This would expand it massively, or at least expand the research into that, into tapping into that resource that we could have here. So we cover a lot during this. I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it. Here it is, Andrea Salinas. Well, Congresswoman, thank you very much for being here with us to talk about this. And obviously, you know, fiscal year 2025, already something that's being talked about, being debated, and you have submitted recently your funding requests for that. And I think just so everybody understands a little bit about how the governmental process works, could you tell us what goes on with that, like how you submit that and what the next steps are? And then we can go through the specific ones.
Yeah, typically every year Congress passes their spending programs. So all of them, and there are like 13 different spending bills. And sometimes they're all included in one. And we are asked typically at the beginning of the process to submit some requests from our local jurisdictions. And actually for fiscal year 2024, which started last September, we go on a fiscal year that ends, or actually end of September, starts October 1st. But we didn't really pass all the bills for FY24 until March. But I delivered about $14 million in federal funding for different important local projects in the district, everything from, you know, improving safety for drivers and pedestrians on our roads to making sure we had access to rural broadband and needed upgrades in water systems. So now, as we begin to work on the federal fiscal year 2025 budget, we basically solicit feedback from the community and from, you know, city government, county government on what are some of their needs. What do you need to make sure that you have the funding for, you know, critical infrastructure, maybe some kind of, you know, parks or programs or preventing child abuse, those types of things. And then we whittle it down and we get far more requests than we're actually able to submit. The committee, the appropriations committee typically asks us to limit it to about 15 projects. And so now as we're entering fiscal year 2025 and trying to get those funding bills out, I have submitted even more this time around, about $23 million for our community.
And is there a cap or a dollar amount that you're given, like it's got to be within this amount, or is it submit it and just see what passes?
Yeah, so they try to give us some guidelines around this. Like there are definitely certain committees and appropriation programs that they will not fund. So, and typically like on the House side, labor and health and human services. So a lot of the healthcare issues will not get funded. So if you have those kinds of requests, you're probably not going to get them funded. They will also tell you it's probably right to make a request of anywhere from about $500,000 to, or less, but about $500,000 to maybe about maximum $3 million, and somewhere probably around the 1.5 to 1.5 million is the sweet spot.
And with that dollar amount, actually, that transitions right into this. I know for 2024, a big part of your request and the funding that you did receive was for the Salem Airport and some improvements there to expand that. And I noticed in this request you have another, I believe it's about 1.7 million or so requested for that airport expansion. Can you talk about what that would be used for?
Yeah, it basically would continue the work that they've already started to improve mobility and making sure that there are all of the infrastructure for a municipal airport. So baggage claim, passenger queuing areas, waiting areas, and to expand those waiting areas to make it more comfortable and to make sure that all of the upgrades needed for FAA, all of the legal things that need to be in place are actually there in terms of the technology. So, and this I think is a really important project, not just for Salem specifically, but really for our region. I think that, if we can bring back commercial flights in a way that makes makes sense. This is about economic development, right? So, I've had people, we actually have a flight now, I think one that goes to Burbank, one to Las Vegas, and I think they're going to be starting a flight to Sonoma here pretty soon. So I think, with the Willamette Valley right here, people can avoid Portland. Folks can come up from Eugene or other areas, and they don't have to necessarily go into, the big complicated PDX.
And looking at some of the other stuff too that you have requested here, as you mentioned, there's a number of them and $23 million worth. Could you maybe talk to us just about some of the highlights, and maybe is there one specifically that you sought out above all others here for this particular bill?
Yeah, I mean, there are some that I feel like are so, and when I look at this, and last time I kind of did the same thing, first off, making sure that we're keeping people safe is high on my list of trying to improve our communities. And so on those transportation and highway dollars, a lot of them were about reducing fatalities. And so we will do the same thing this time. I've made a request of about 1.7 million to improve public safety and support our police departments in Tualatin and Salem. This again is about making making sure that our constituents feel safe. Also, making sure that kids who are being abused or have trauma have a place to go. And we just opened up, Liberty House just opened up a service center in Woodburn. They have one in Salem, but, making sure that, again, kids and families have a safe place to go and have the services that they need to be whole. So those are two big ones for me. The Beaverton Behavioral Health Court is another one. We know that mental health, substance use gets really complicated, and being able to figure out wraparound services through the behavioral health court system is a great way to stay on the road to recovery and not get wrapped up in the criminal justice system if it can be avoided. So those are some things that, again, trying to keep people safe, trying to keep our community safe.
And with these submissions that you're putting in there, can you tell us what the process is now as far as debating, and whether they'll all get selected or whether it's just amount of money for each one, and that process and how that works?
Yeah, so the process is well on its way. We actually only had a week, less than a week, once the majority told us that we were able to start submitting our plans and our requests. So, and they're already starting the work in the subcommittee. So I just got word that two of my requests, I think it was an upgrade to Carlton's sewage system and the Anwalk Farms Agricultural Community Center, were included in the Appropriations Committee's draft bill and are on track, I think, to receive funding. So I'm really excited. But yes, so we are trying to figure out how we make sure we get out of here on time in Congress later in September, and make sure that we complete all of our work on time. So it sounds like the committees are working to do just that.
Well, going from that to talk about something else, that I know is a big initiative for you, is when it comes to aiding farmers. And there was just something that came out about some initiatives that you have as far as clean energy for farmers and keeping up with newer technology. Can you talk about some of those initiatives you have and where they're at in the process?
Yeah, so this will actually help the National Science Foundation and the U.S. Department of Agriculture to essentially coordinate, right? National Science Foundation does so much research and development in terms of technology, right? And we keep hearing from our growers that there are things in the research and development sector that the U.S. Department of Agriculture could actually also help with. So making sure that the two are coordinated with new technology. So whether it's, addressing pests and biological approaches to pest control, knowing that, if we can reduce pesticides and herbicides, we actually improve our climate, but we also help growers who really need this kind of science and to be coordinated. So that's essentially what this will do, is to make these two agencies coordinate with a vision for helping our folks on the ground. We know that AI is going to be another tool that farmers might be able to use in their farms and production, and to make it more efficient and climate friendly. Again, with that vision, we want these two agencies to work together.
And so if those two agencies work together, and yes, so many things you just mentioned there, electrification of the vehicles, AI being incorporated, all kinds of things, would this provide for education to some of those farmers to understand that technology and how to utilize it, or would that be a separate bill?
Absolutely, actually. Yes, that is a big component of the bill, which I'm really excited about too, is providing some workforce training around this as well. And we know that so many of our young folks who grow up in rural areas want to stay in rural areas, right? We have all these 4-H programs, and they would be able to have some of this training and education to bring them up to speed in all of these latest advanced technologies.
And one other component of that too, I know had to do with geothermal research, which certainly here in the Northwest, that could be a potential really valuable source of energy. But can you talk about what the initiative is that you have there and how that research would work?
Yeah, this is really exciting, actually. So again, I partnered with the chair of our Science, Space, and Technology Committee, Frank Lucas, and I was really grateful. Oregon is the fifth largest producer of geothermal energy, and we've been doing it for years down in Klamath Falls. And the Oregon Institute of Technology has actually been producing electricity and essentially using that energy in their buildings. So making sure, but there's a new type, again, a new type of model and a new emerging technology that would help us to get into penetrate the earth even deeper than we have ever gone before, to tap into geothermal potentially across the state, not just where we have volcanoes like in Oregon. So that's why Oregon is a natural place for us to do this work. And we actually just got a grant to do some of this work in, I think it's Central Oregon at one of the volcanoes. So, but really it's called superheating. And so making sure that we go deeper to actually try to find that geothermal sources.
I love that. Just that idea of being able to tap into that resource that we do have here. So with this, with this research, I guess, what are the steps that happen for that? I imagine it's right in the very beginning of this, even though we do have some of these things already happening here around the state. Is this something we can look forward to seeing, in a short amount of time if this does pass through?
Absolutely. I mean, everything I feel like with the government takes a bit of time, right? So if it passes this year, I'm excited. It passed unanimously out of committee, no objections. So I'm hoping we will see it on the floor of the House this year. And then typically it takes either 6 months or a year for the agencies then to put it into action. So it'll still be about a year and a half or so. But again, making sure, and really the idea behind it is that we will need all hands on deck, every source of energy, if we're going to move to a clean energy economy and we're going to move away from fossil fuels. And right now, we don't have the backup energy to help us move to completely 100% renewables, right? There are times when disasters strike. I mean, we saw it with these last ice storms where disaster strikes and our energy, goes down. We don't have electricity. So having other sources, and geothermal could be one of those backup sources.
Well, very fascinating to see if that can, go through and see what that can do, especially for this region here, to be able to tap into that. Well, Congresswoman, thank you very much, for joining us to talk about this and explain how the process works and some of these initiatives that you have and some of these spending bills that are going to be going in there. And hopefully, we'll see what that can come through to help out the people of Oregon. And yeah, really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, and thank you to the Congresswoman for joining us here for Fox 12 Now. And I will say this, we're going to have a follow-up discussion about geothermal energy with the Oregon Department of Energy on Thursday coming up. So to discuss where that's being utilized right now and what the potential actually is here for the Northwest, should that research go through, or just what can be done to really utilize what we have here right underneath our feet. And we will continue on here, the Fox 12 Now coming up at 1:30 p.m. If you're watching live, we're going to take a trip out to the Portland Insectarium. You may remember that we had Jessica, the proprietor, here in studio. This was several months ago. They've since moved locations, so we're going to talk about their new location and showcase what all they have going on there. That's again at 1:30 p.m. And if you are not watching live, well, you can watch all of our segments there on the Fox 12 Oregon app, or wherever you're watching me right now. There are plenty of ways to catch all the different things that we get to talk about. So thanks for joining us. We'll regroup here. We'll be back in about 10 minutes or so. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.